At 13 hours on the 10th of July 1940, the white cliffs of Dover are gleaming under a calm summer sun. To a casual observer standing on the grass, the English Channel looks peaceful, a sparkling blue moat separating the island from the chaos of the continent. But to the radar operators inside a humid, dimly lit shack at the Pevensey Chain home station, the world is screaming. On their oscilloscopes, the green line of the cathode ray tube is spiking violently. It isn't a glitch. It is a digital heartbeat warning them that the largest air armada in history is forming up just 20 miles away. Hermann Göring, the head of the German Luftwaffe, is confident. He has assured Adolf Hitler that the Royal Air Force can be swept from the sky in 4 days. 4 days. After that, Operation Sea Lion will begin the amphibious invasion of Great Britain. The German pilots, flushed with their lightning victories in Poland and France, believe they are invincible. They are flying the Messerschmitt Bf 109, a masterpiece of Bavarian engineering, capable of climbing like a rocket and diving without its engine stalling. They outnumber the British 2 to 1. On paper, the mathematics of war dictate that Britain is already dead, but the Germans have made a fatal error. They are fighting a 20th century war with 19th century intelligence. They believe the British are using binoculars and sound trumpets to spot them. They have no idea that they are flying into an electromagnetic web. The British secret weapon isn't a plane. It's a series of unsightly 360-foot steel towers strung along the coast. This is the chain home radar system. It works on a principle of physics that the Germans understand, but have failed to weaponize effectively. Radio waves bounce off metal. When a radio pulse hits a Heinkel bomber, it reflects back at the speed of light. By measuring the time of the echo, the British know exactly where the enemy is, how high they are, and how fast they are coming. This data is fed via telephone lines to the filter room at Bentley Priory. There, in a scene that looks more like a casino than a war room, members of the Women's Auxiliary Air Force, WAF, use long wooden croupier sticks to push plastic counters across a giant map of England. They aren't guessing. They are tracking the German formations in real time. This system, the Dowding system, allows the RAF to do something the Germans think is impossible. Keep their planes on the ground until the last possible second. They don't have to waste fuel patrolling the empty sky. They wait, they watch, and then they scramble to the exact point of intercept. At 13:15 hours, the scramble bell rings at Biggin Hill. Young men, barely 20 years old, sprint across the grass. They jump into the cockpits of their Hawker Hurricanes and Supermarine Spitfires. The ground crews plug in the starter trolleys. The Rolls-Royce Merlin engines cough, spit blue smoke, and then roar to life. These engines are the heart of the resistance. A 27-litre V12 beast that produces 1,000 horsepower. But as they climb to 20,000 feet to meet the enemy, the British pilots are fighting a distinct technological disadvantage. The Spitfire is beautiful and agile, but its Merlin engine uses a float carburetor. If a British pilot pushes the stick forward to dive, negative G-force pushes the fuel away from the intake. The engine cuts out. It coughs. It dies for a terrifying second. The German Bf 109 uses fuel injection, which pumps fuel directly into the cylinders regardless of gravity. A German pilot can bunt into a dive and vanish. A British pilot has to roll over and dive upside down to keep the fuel flowing. It is a tiny engineering detail, but at 400 miles per hour, it is the difference between life and death. By August 13th, Eagle Day, the battle shifts from probing attacks to a full-scale bludgeoning. Göring changes tactics. He stops attacking the convoys and orders his bombers to target the RAF airfields. This is the strategy that could win the war. He intends to blind the RAF by destroying the radar towers and suffocating them by cratering their runways. At 14 hours on August 15th, a massive raid hits the airfield at Driffield. The destruction is absolute. Hangars are burning. The operations room is a pile of brick, but the radar towers, despite being hit, are just open steel lattice frameworks. The blast waves from the bombs pass right through them. The electronics huts are damaged, but the British engineers, working like madmen, rewire the systems. Within hours, The blind eye sees again. The Germans, seeing the towers still standing, assume they are indestructible or useless and stop targeting them as a priority. It is a strategic blunder of massive proportions. However, the attrition is working. The RAF is bleeding to death. They are losing pilots faster than they can train them. The factories are churning out Spitfires, but a plane without a pilot is just a collection of aluminum and rivets. The average life expectancy of a new pilot in August 1940 is 4 weeks. They are flying 5, 6 sorties a day. They are falling asleep in their cockpits between missions, their faces grey with exhaustion, their hands shaking from the adrenaline and the benzodrine tablets kept in their flight suits. The German pilots are tired too, but they have a different problem: fuel. The Bf 109 carries only enough fuel for about 80 minutes of flight. It takes 30 minutes to cross the channel and form up. It takes 30 minutes to get back. That leaves them with exactly 20 minutes of combat time over London. When the red light on their dashboard flickers, they have to turn home, regardless of the tactical situation. If they get into a dogfight that lasts 21 minutes, they end up swimming in the channel. The British pilots, defending their home turf, can fight until their tanks are dry and glide back to a potato field. By late August, the RAF is on the ropes. The sector stations, the nerve centers that control the fighters, are being pounded into dust. If the Germans keep this up for another week, the command and control network will collapse. The British fighters will be blind, scattered, and easily picked off. The invasion is imminent. Barges are gathering in French ports. And then, on the night of August 24th, a navigational error changes the course of history. A wayward group of German Heinkel 111 bombers, aiming for an oil terminal and aircraft factory, drift off course in the dark. They see a gap in the clouds and drop their bombs. They aren't over a factory. They are over central London. The bombs destroy a church and damage residential homes in Cripplegate. It is a mistake, but Winston Churchill takes it as a challenge. He orders an immediate retaliation. The next night, 81 RAF bombers fly to Berlin. They do negligible damage, physically killing an elephant in the Berlin Zoo and breaking some windows, but the psychological damage is nuclear. Hitler has promised the German people that no enemy bomb would ever fall on the capital. He has been humiliated. On September 4th, Hitler makes a speech at the Sportpalast in Berlin. His voice rises to a scream. If they declare they will attack our cities, he roars, we will erase theirs. Goering is ordered to switch targets. On September 7th, the massive German formations turn away from the battered RAF airfields. They turn away from the radar stations. They ignore the sector control rooms that are hanging by a thread. Instead, they head for London. In the RAF bunkers, the commanders watch the plot. They see the turn. They can't believe it. They are relieved. They're going for the city. An officer whispers. It sounds cruel, but strategically, it is a miracle. It gives the RAF airfields a chance to breathe. The runways are repaired. The telephone lines are reconnected. New pilots arrive. By attacking the heart of the enemy, Hitler has spared his lungs. He has stopped suffocating the fighter command right when it was gasping its last breath. The climax arrives on September 15th, 1940, Battle of Britain Day. The weather is clear. The Luftwaffe launches everything they have. 2 massive waves, totaling over 1,500 aircraft, head for London. They believe the RAF is down to its last 50 fighters. Their intelligence reports state that the British are broken. At 11:30 hours, over the Thames estuary, the Germans look out of their cockpits and see a nightmare. They don't see an empty sky. They see the big wing. Wing commander Douglas Bader, a legless pilot flying with tin prosthetics, leads 5 squadrons of Hurricanes and Spitfires into the sun. From the other side, more squadrons appear. 300 British fighters dive on the German bombers. The sky turns into a chaotic tapestry of contrails, twisting metal and parachutes. The sheer violence of the dogfights defies description. This is 3D chess played at 350 miles per hour. A Spitfire pilot, diving on a Dornier bomber, has to calculate deflection aiming where the enemy will be, not where he is. He presses the firing button. The recoil of his 8 Browning 303 machine guns slows his plane down by 5 miles per hour. He watches his tracers stitch a line across the German wing. The fuel tank ignites. But the real story of September 15th is the psychological breaking of the Luftwaffe. The German bomber crews have been told the RAF is destroyed. Yet, wave after wave of British fighters are tearing through their formations. The morale of the German crews collapses. They drop their bombs randomly over the suburbs and turn for home. They realize their leaders have lied to them. At the 11 Group bunker in Uxbridge, Winston Churchill is watching the battle unfold on the plotting table. The lights representing German squadrons are flooding the map. The lights representing British squadrons are all committed. He turns to Air Vice Marshal Keith Park and asks, "What reserves have we?" Park looks at the Prime Minister and delivers the terrifying truth. There are none. Every single plane, every single pilot is in the air. If another wave comes, England falls. But another wave does not come. The Germans have taken a mauling. On this single day, the Luftwaffe loses 60 aircraft. The RAF loses 26. It is a decisive victory, not just in numbers, but in spirit. The Germans realize that air superiority is impossible. The British are not only still fighting, they are getting stronger. 2 days later, on September 17th, Adolf Hitler sends a coded message to his generals. Operation Sea Lion is postponed indefinitely. The invasion barges in France are dispersed. The immediate threat of German boots on British soil has evaporated. The Battle of Britain was the first major military campaign fought entirely by air forces. It was a victory of technology, radar, and the Merlin engine, but also a victory of human endurance. It was won by the few, the 2,936 pilots from Britain, Poland, Canada, New Zealand, Czechoslovakia, and other nations who refused to yield the sky. The Polish 303 Squadron alone, fueled by a hatred of the Nazis who destroyed their homeland, claimed the highest kill ratio of the battle. They flew with a reckless aggression that terrified even their British counterparts. The strategic significance of this victory is monumental. By staying in the war, Britain became the unsinkable aircraft carrier anchored off the coast of Europe. It became the launch pad for the American bombers that would later pulverize German industry. It became the staging ground for D-Day 4 years later. But most importantly, the Battle of Britain forced Hitler's hand. Unable to knock out the West, he turned his eyes to the East. Frustrated and impatient, he ordered the planning for Operation Barbarossa, the invasion of the Soviet Union. He decided to fight a two-front war, the classic blunder that doomed every German empire. The young men who sat in the grass at Biggin Hill, waiting for the scramble bell, didn't know they were saving the world. They just knew they had to stop the bombers. They climbed into their cockpits, smelling of oil and fear, and flew into the pages of history. In the end, the physics of the battle were simple. The Germans had the mass, but the British had the momentum. They had the radar that allowed them to be in the right place at the right time, and they had the resolve to stay there. The Black Swarm was turned back not by a miracle, but by a shield of radio waves and a sword of aluminum. So, what do you think? Was the German defeat caused by the technical superiority of the radar, or was it Hitler's emotional decision to switch targets to London that cost him the war? Could the Luftwaffe have won if they had stuck to bombing the airfields for just one more week? Let me know your analysis in the comments below. And if you want to understand how the air war shifted to the bombing of Germany, smash that like button and subscribe.